And we were looking for that promise and that hope in this speech today. We did see a lot of the right slogans and political talking points, but no clear plans to get it done. No specific plans to get anything done, even though, as the Prime Minister has said, we are in a crisis to break our dependence on the American economy.
I do not believe it is ill-intended. I believe that Mr. Carney sees himself culturally as the CEO of Canada. And he will make decisions, and he will have his decisions being implemented by everybody. And he seems to see that Quebec and provinces are merely region offices. I'm not mad at him now, and I intend not to be. It is the way it works where he comes from.
What? That's Pierre Poilievre, followed, of course, by Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet. I thought he was saying something good till he got to the end, which is I'm just waiting to get mad at him. James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, they're both referring to, I guess, what we heard today from King Charles on the throne speech, which laid out the Liberal position pretty much. What was your take on what you heard?
I have to tell you, regular listeners of this show will know that I'm not a fan of either Poilievre or Blanchet. But I got to tell you, those are probably two of the most germane quotes you'll hear the entire day, surrounding this dog and pony show over at the Senate House, especially Blanchet, because I think he's 100% right. I really got the impression that this was a kind of a spectacle for the plebes, and basically, and as you pointed out in your last interview with our Ottawa correspondent, there wasn't much there. I couldn't help but get the feeling that if Elizabeth II was still alive and able to do this, she probably would have used far more pointed language, but she didn't. But there was nothing there in that throne speech that we haven't heard already out of the mouth of Mark Carney. Yeah. The fact that it's coming from Charles III, I don't know, maybe he's expecting someone to be overawed by it. Certainly the people in the room with the king were overawed by it. But I'm not really sure this is going to make much of a ripple of a difference in terms of our relations with the U.S., certainly Donald Trump's perception of it. I think, first of all, unless his name gets mentioned positively or negatively, Donald Trump doesn't care. And given that neither happened today, he'll probably let this whole thing slide. I was struck by the surreality of it. And I was a bit disappointed as well, and it's my own fault, because on the one hand, I'm watching this thing unfold from the very beginning. I'm watching the stream, and you've got the usher of the Black Rod summoning the MPs and this and that. Excuse me. And there's the tradition. There's these 6 centuries of tradition, and then you get in and you've got the king. And I really thought, and like I say, I'm being naive, I thought the king would not do this assignment in plain clothes. I thought he'd wear at least like a touching red shirt, jersey or whatever, with something to overawe the population. But he came in. He's a nice $1 trillion suit with a row of, I guess, Canadian orders, Canadian medals, and he's reading this. And I got to tell you, Aaron, they have the royal family have their own way of speaking English, and it is very, very distinct. Dominic West is a British actor who played Charles in the Netflix series The Crown, and he was talking about how they had to be close to speak to imitate the way the Windsors speak English. For example, the word yes, Y-E-S, is pronounced the way we spell ears, E-A-R-S. Try it and you'll see what I mean. But all that said, here's Charles with this kind of almost AI-sounding voice. And he's talking about, les grandes lignes of the government, which I understand. But when they got down to basics, it was kind of weird. That moment, there's a line where he goes, the government's responding, reducing middle-class taxes and saving 2-income families up to $840 a year. And then there's the most gorgeous sort of like half-beat pause. And I was almost waiting for him to look over at Carney and go, 840. What's the best you could do? But he didn't say that. But what I found fascinating was it occurred to me that Charles being Charles, that's probably the first and perhaps the only time he'll ever use the words $840 a year, if you know what I'm saying. It's not the kind of thing that's going to come up in conversation in Buckingham Palace. So there was that kind of jarring, we're on the other side. And in the end, I got to tell you, Aaron, I thought the whole thing – I am going to get in trouble for saying this. I thought the whole thing was about as staged as Justin Trudeau's sneakers.
Oh, I didn't see those. What was he wearing?
Have you not seen the
No.
sneakers? Oh, my God. That was the idea. He's wearing these loud green. I think they're Adidas. But they're green with red stripes.
Oh, I didn't see that at all.
Under his suit, And, of course, everyone's remarking on Justin Trudeau's shoes. But I'm sorry. And I did get the impression that this speech, which is written basically by Carney's office, was like, you know what, we're going to tell you what you need to know. Don't worry, we're the adults in the room, we're the experts, which is fine, which is great and inspires confidence as long as it pays off. But at a moment donné, my friends, you got to start paying off. And I think there are a lot of people out there, certainly a lot of people who are infinitely more concerned with our own economic straits rather than what Donald Trump thinks.
Sure.
And I think maybe perhaps a little more the whole energy corridor issue, which you would think is very, very important for the entire country, barely received any mention whatsoever, if any. It was just kind of surreal. And don't get me wrong, I realize that this is a man who waited virtually all of his entire life to finally get the job that he was born and bred and trained to do. The poor guy's being treated for cancer, and he's coming over here doing this kind of colonial kind of service for us. But in the end, I don't know. I don't think this will be perceived down the road, and when I say down the road, I'm talking in 2 weeks' time, as any kind of major kind of punctuation point for the Carney government. I think the Carney government has yet to let its character be known. I guess we'll find out in the weeks to come. Maybe, with this budget that they now say they're going to table in the fall. But in the meantime, you know what? I got to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, the jury's still out on these guys.
Jim, if I can go back to what you started with, referring to Yves-François Blanchet and the clip we played, about Mark Carney being sort of the CEO. Yeah, I get that. I thought that was a good thing, as you pointed out. But you know what? If that's going to be what it is, and he gets stuff done that way and treats all the provinces as, what do you call them, regional offices?
Yeah, he meant branch offices.
Yeah, is that a terrible thing? I mean, he's not going to. Well, he's not going to do that anyway, because he's already trying to make appease Alberta and everybody else. So I don't see that.
But for all the hopping up and down about how our government is so different, that's not how our government works, Aaron. We are a federation. We are 13 jurisdictions, each of which has its own sacrosanct jurisdictions. They're not doing this for fun when they talk about leave health alone, leave education alone. The only real sort of transnational interest that the feds have would be in the criminal code or within the Health Act, and having coast-to-coast standards. But each of these governments exist in and of themselves. Each of the heads of those governments are referred to as well as prime ministers.
Sure,
we say premiers. But the idea, if you turn around and start saying, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and this is it, and maybe, don't get me wrong, we both know Blanchet. We both know he knows how to do professional wrestling, and maybe he's just trying to, get people worked up. But the fact is, I would suggest that, Prime Minister Carney tread carefully, because there's a certain honeymoon period, even among the premiers, that he may enjoy. But the bottom line here is they've got to get results. They have got to get us out of the ditch that we got driven into by Trudeau and company. Many of whom who are in that car are now in Carney's cabinet. So we'll have to wait and see how that's going to play out, Aaron. But the fact of the matter is, I'm getting a bad vibe off of Mark Carney.
I don't see him doing that. I don't see him alienating those provinces to get things done. I think he understands the part about working together, exactly what you just said now. But Yves-François Blanchet's got to score points. That was a way to do it. By the way, Jim, just real quick to what you just said about when you talked about the overall, your take on what happened today, which was it was okay, probably won't be talked about in a couple of weeks from now. I had a royal historian on off the top of the show. His reaction was a bit different. Listen to this.
I was really impressed. I thought that the speech hit all the right notes. It did everything it needed to, and I think it is going to be remembered as one of the most important speeches that Charles has ever made in Canada.
See, Jim, perspective is everything.
That's the only speech I think he ever made in Canada. No, as king.
Well, he's been here 20 times. Maybe he made another one somewhere else.
And his heart keeps getting more full of Canada with every visit.
In his bloodstream and in his heart.
Yeah.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.